I'm Avery Haynes, driving through the streets of Toronto. Something that just got a little more expensive. The vehicle registration tax has increased by $12, and Romana King with MoneySense is here with me now. Thanks for joining me for the ride.
Thank you, Avery.
Listen, this has gone up a whole bunch of times in the last few years.
Yeah, I think in the last 5 years it's almost doubled. We used to pay $74 a year, and now we're paying $120 as of this recent increase.
And we've seen massive lineups for people trying to beat this $12 tax and crashing of systems.
Yeah, well, to save $12, we had so many people try and get online, line up in person at service centers that they just couldn't process all of the applications to do it.
All right, the reason why that's happening is it's so expensive to drive in the city and to commute as well. What are some of the stats that you have?
Well, I think the CAA did a numbers game a few years ago, and they found that there was about a $9,500 cost if you drove a small car. If you drive something like an SUV or a van, it's about $13,000 per year on average. If you drive about 24,000 kilometers per year. And that's kind of like if you don't use your car for commuting and you only use it on the weekends.
So some $13,000 just to have a car for getting around the city.
Yes.
And then obviously a heck of a lot more for people who are driving in, which is a big part of the population.
Well, and this is the thing, is it's expensive to have this car, but it's also expensive to take transit. I think we crunched on our numbers when we did urban suburbans. We looked at real estate and where you live in the city. And we looked at suburban Toronto and we looked at urban Toronto. And the people that commute in about 30 minutes one way, they spend $3,000 in transit costs per year. And 30 minutes, just to give you a rough idea of where that is, that's anything west of Roncesvalles, anything north of Lawrence, and anything east of Birchmount.
So commuting is also costing a big amount of money if you're using public transit.
Absolutely.
And obviously if you have one car, it's a certain cost. If you have two, it's more, but I cannot believe how much more it is to have a second car.
Well, there's lots of people around the world actually crunching these numbers, and one of the international organizations that looks at commuting costs and urban development, they estimate that it's about $200,000 if you add a second car. If you don't have that second car, you could save yourself that $200,000 and maybe buy in the downtown core.
$200,000 over how long?
Over about a 20-25 year period.
Wow, that's a big cost.
Big chunk of change.
Anything else that we should know about how to save money with having a vehicle, or?
A lot of people look at, say, car sharing, and they say, I'll do a car sharing thing. There's a lot out there now. I think there's 3 different models that you can choose from, and I think it's a great idea if you do use your car on an occasional basis. But we crunched the numbers a couple of years ago, and what we found was that if you use your car more than 3 times a week, it actually is cheaper to own and pay for your own car.
Cheaper than using the car sharing service if you use it 3 times a week?
Yes, if you use it 3 times or more each week, it's actually cheaper to own your own car. Even though you might have it sitting in your driveway 5 days a week and you're only using it on Saturday or Sunday, if you use that car 2 or 3 times in that weekend, it's actually cheaper to just pay for your car yourself. And that's tough because you really want to try and find people an alternative to the expensive costs of owning a car.
Listen, I'm going to take you back to MoneySense. Thank you so much for coming for a ride with me, giving me the lowdown on the high costs. Thanks so much.